my gosh, it's a new season of APDL and we're back with video content. Wow. Hey everybody, it's been a long time. My name's Josh, JK, coach of the newly branded Twin City Talonflames. APDL Season 9 is back upon us, or upon us now. And the cool thing about this is we've got a brand new team. We're back to the draft format, and that means we've got a draft review video for you. So we got to draft in the 11th position, I believe, for the Season 9 draft. Excuse me. There are 16 teams. So lots of competition, lots of great rivalries coming back, lots of great new players joining the league. So I'm really excited about how this is going to go. We're going to dive into our draft a little bit, talk about the team, talk about kind of the plan moving forward for Season 9. Hopefully kick off the season on a strong foot. So, like I said, we drafted in 11th position. There were 8 teams ahead of us in the top half of the wheel and then the bottom half of the wheel. And then 9, 10, and Talonflames were 11. So everybody gets 10 Pokemon to choose. And we did this a little differently this year. We had a points system or points draft. So every team had 500 points to use kind of at their discretion. They were able to divvy it up however they wanted by picking stuff out of tier point totals that were 100, 80, 60, 40, and 20. And however you made your team, you could use your points in any way as long as it added up to 500 and you ended up with 10 Pokemon. So without further ado, let's jump in and talk about our team. I'm going to go in probably reverse order of point total. And that way we'll kind of start with our 20-point Mons and we'll end with our 100-point Mon. And then we'll just talk about the team in general. So there were a couple of things that I wanted in kind of thinking about the overall theme of my team this year. Big offensive threat that could compete for kill lead during the season is not something I've ever really had. So I definitely drafted a big heavy hitter in the 100 spot. And then the rest of the draft, I wanted priority. I wanted flexibility. And I wanted stuff that would allow me to kind of offer chip damage throughout the course of a game. And then be able to have our 100-point Mon just kind of clean up and swing through and get lots of KOs. So the role players, the 20-point Mons to get started. I'm really happy that we picked up a Grumpig with one of our 20-point picks. Grumpig is not something, and actually this entire team is made up of Mons that I've never used before, so I'm super excited about that. And I think Grumpig gives us some cool special offense and defensive options with a really unique moveset and something that can set screens for us. It can be a cleric. It can be a defensive, kind of assault vest, high special defense Mon. Good typing. Lots of cool things that we can do to make use of a Pokemon that, isn't something that you'd be like, oh, wow, really excited. It's jumping off the page as far as Grumpig is concerned. But I'm really happy that, towards the end of the draft when we were everybody was kind of picking up their 20s and finding out where their role players were. I'm actually really excited that we got something like a Grumpig. Thick Fat is a great ability that helps us in the type chart. Own Tempo means I can't be confused, can't be intimidated. Not that Grumpig's ever going to be a physical offensive Mon, but we also have the hidden ability Gluttony, which can let us eat berries faster and maybe do some kind of shenanigans with that. It's really going to be just a really good kind of special member of the team on the special side. It's got some good utility. We can do Encore, things like that, Heal Bell. So it can be a cleric, it can be a screen setter, it can be, a part of the defense. And maybe, we get crazy some week and we try and go offensive Grumpig and, surprise somebody. Who knows? But that's Grumpig, and that was one of our 20-point Pokemon. Another 20-pointer that I'm actually the most excited about is actually Electros. I think Electros is a steal at 20 points. This thing has no weaknesses. With its levitate ability, it literally does not have a weakness. And I think it's got really good stats in some areas that really matter, especially when you're looking at what I'm getting for 20 points. It's competing with the bottom of the barrel as far as Pokemon is concerned. So something that has 115 attack and 105 special attack, and 85 HP and 80 in defenses, all super solid stat lines. And the 50 speed is actually something that I don't mind. Again, kind of like looking for priority was something that I wanted in this draft. So, the slow Volt Switch U-turn potential that I have with Electros actually gives me some really good pivot that I might not have with some of my other mons that learn those moves. So, being able to go second, take a hit maybe with an Assault Vest, soak up a special hit, and then slow Volt Switch out or slow U-turn out, along with being able to just kind of be a cool mixed offensive set. And electric Pokemon traditionally in the draft, they have been fast electric types that have done well in the draft format. So we're going to see if we can't make a slower electric type work. And like I said, I think just stats alone make this thing a steal at 20 points. And I'm really excited to have it on the team. Next up, actually one of our last picks, it actually might have been my last pick. I was really not sure where to go with my last, actually, into our 40-point mons. I should clarify that first off. I only drafted 2 20-point Pokemon, so that's Grumpig and Wishiwashi and Electros. And the 40-point mon that I chose last, that kind of rounded out the squad at the tail end of the draft, is Wishiwashi. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wishiwashi is not the deepest move pool ever for a competitive Pokemon. But its stats kind of are really why I grabbed it. The schooling ability that changes me from quarter HP when that happens. When I drop from school form down to solo form, Wishiwashi's pretty useless in that form. You've got 20 and 25 for your base stats. But on the schooling side, something that has 140, 130, 140, 135, it's so bulky and it hits so hard. I think this is kind of a cool role player that could be a part of our offense. And actually, with some of the other members that we drafted, Grumpig being able to set screens, looking at leftovers items and grassy terrain healing, spoiler for my 80-point pick. There's a lot of cool ways that we can kind of keep Wishiwashi's health total higher that might actually let us survive longer and stay in our big beefy schooling form and actually be a pretty big threat. I have gone up against Wishiwashi in draft league games before, and it is a terror, and I think it's really cool that we have it on the team this time around and can use it to be able to, maybe make some noise. I am going to be really situational and really careful about where I bring Wishiwashi in, but I think in the games that we choose to bring it, it's going to be a big impact player. So next up, kind of more along this lines of more support, is another one of our 40-point picks, Claydol. I noticed kind of in the middle rounds of my draft that I was really weaker on the special side, special defense specifically. And Claydol fits that role extremely well. It's got 120 base special defense, decent speed, other good stats, especially in that defensive category. And this is another mon that I can use to set screens and be hazard removal with rapid spin. I think Claydol is a role player for sure. It is not going to wow anybody in the course of a season, but I think it's going to do some really important and really impactful things in the games where I need to bring it. We've got Grumpig and Wishy-Washy that have those high defense stats in the special defense. But in cases where I need hazard removal, Claydol is really the best option I have on the team, outside of like a defog from another friend of ours that we'll get to here in just a few picks. So Claydol, again, going to be a role player, but it's going to play an important role, especially in a division where hazards are definitely going to be a thing. So I love Claydol as a role player, and it's going to fit what I need it to. And who knows? Maybe we try and get cute with it at some point during the season. But that's Claydol. Up next is one of the Pokemon that I took really early on in the draft, actually, and that's Copperajah. I drafted my 100-point Mon, one of my 60-point Mons, and then I tried to fill out kind of like a type triangle, or like a pseudo type triangle. And Copperajah, being Steel type, actually fills out some of the need in that weird kind of mishmashed type triangle. So Copperajah is really cool. Sheer Force and Heavy Metal are the two abilities that it rocks, and we're going to mostly use Sheer Force because that 130 attack stat is astronomical. I think there's a cool opportunity here to have Copperajah maybe be a Terramon in some weeks. Its special attack is actually not too bad. So like a Terra Blast from this thing actually could do, a little bit of damage. And then obviously just like that uninvested attack stat is still, hitting things extremely hard. I wish its defenses were a little bit higher, and it's definitely slow. I think it actually might be the slowest thing on my team. It is the slowest thing on my team. So it definitely needs help in the speed area, and it is a little more frail than you would think. But 122 HP will help with that, and then we can, do some things to keep it as healthy as we can, and be able to really hit things hard with Copperajah. It's got a really good move pool. And I think just like a Steel type in general is something that my team desperately needed. And if you look at the type chart, I have so many ground immunities that takes that weakness kind of away. And Fighting type being one of the other two weaknesses that this thing has. I have some coverage for Fire type, Fighting type. We'll deal with it. But I think that this is a really solid pick in the grand scheme of my team. And I think when we bring it to games, it'll be something that people have to respect the potential that it could just like one-shot things. So that's Copperajah. Next up, kind of staying in the 40-point tiers, our last 40-point Mon. So we drafted 2 20-point Pokemon, and then 4 40-point Pokemon. So the last 40 that we drafted was Houndoom. I needed speed, and Houndoom is at least in that good speed tier of 95. It's not going to win every sprint race, but it's going to keep up with a lot of things. And the 110 special attack is really good. I like Houndoom as a fast special threat that can outspeed a lot of things in the draft format, and then be able to also hit pretty hard with things like Dark Pulse, Fire Blast. It gets Sludge Bomb to help with the Fairy type matchup that it struggles with. And then, it's kind of like a pretty decent category, or a pretty decent Pokemon to maybe use my Terrapult type on for the week. It is a little bit frail, and it gets blown up by anything that tries to use a ground type move or a fighting type move. It is not something that's going to live a lot of hits, especially on the physical side with that 50 base defense. But as a Terramon, we could maybe sneak in a cool special move to help with some coverage, and I think Houndoom, it'll need some support to succeed in my team, but it's a nice kind of option to have, especially in the somewhat limited special attackers on the team. So that is Houndoom. Okay, we are into our 60-point tier, and I drafted two 60s. I drafted one of these with my second pick, and the other one was kind of, again, in the middle rounds, just kind of rounding out role players on the team, but stuff that has really good utility and could play a big role in kind of the overall theme of the team. And in sticking with kind of that idea that I wanted priority, I wanted to be able to pivot really easily. Crobat is a steal at 60 points, and I can't believe I was able to draft it as late in the draft as I did. Crobat is the fastest Pokemon on my team with base 130 speed, and it's got decent bulk for what it does. There will be a theme of me using it for a pivot with stuff like Super Fang and U-Turn to be able to just like chomp away at a wall and then pivot out into a better matchup. Obviously having a Toxic setter or something that can reliably use Toxic, or maybe even just like be able to stop toxic stuff and be able to like kind of outwall stuff is really cool. I know I said stuff a lot in that sentence, but it's a wall breaker in the fact that I can Super Fang and Toxic and wear down big walls that I might have bad matchups with some of my other offensive threats, and with things like Roost and U-Turn, the longevity for Crobat is actually there. So not only is it an offensive threat if I needed it to be with that base 890 attack, but it's also a really crucial wall breaker and pivot Pokemon to be able to kind of help with kind of just the nuances of a draft game where you're switching a lot, you're trying to get the best matchup you can and take advantage of situations that you put your opponent into. So I think Crobat is a steal at 60 points, and I'm really happy that we got it. Okay, next up, our second overall pick, and something that I think is probably my favorite Pokemon on the team, to be honest with you, just for the potential that it brings, and that's the Aqua breed of the Paldean Tauros. So Tauros PW is what you're going to see in the stat sheets in the Discord and when we report games and stuff. But this is the Aqua breed of the new Generation 9 Tauros regional variant. This thing is awesome. I love the Paldean Tauroses. Specifically, TPW has two insanely good abilities in Intimidate and Cudshoe. Intimidate, obviously, being able to lower the attack stat of whatever I'm going up against, and that paired with my 105 defense and 75 HP means that this is a fast defensive Pokemon on the physical side because of my base 100 speed, which is crazy good. We'll not talk about the special stats. We're not here for that. But on the physical side, this thing can take hits and it can dish them out too. The other ability, Cudshoe, if I eat a berry, it'll eat that berry again at the end of next turn. So there's some really cool kind of setup things that I could potentially do. Or even just like, hey, being able to cure status ailments, or excuse me, just be able to not take super effective damage multiple turns in a row or stuff like that. So I think it's a really cool ability to pair with a really bulky Pokemon that also hits extremely hard. Having access to like Aqua Jet is really cool, so having priority there is great. I can run Body Press. It's got Liquidation, Iron Head. It gets Outrage. But out of everything in the move pool, Raging Bull is why I love this thing so much. So Raging Bull is a base 90 attack. It's physical. And it destroys screens. And the type of the move depends on the user's form. So I'm the Aqua Breed, so it's a water type move that breaks screens. And is base 90. I get Stab, and I'm physically offensive in every case that I would be, attacking something. So being able to not only get rid of screens, but also sit in there as a defensive Pokemon that can also dish hits out. I love Tauros PW, and I think it's going to be a really cool member of the team. It's going to be interesting to see if I'm offensive or defensive. It gives me that flexibility. And I really love kind of the job it plays, or the multiple jobs that it can play on the team. And I think it's a great Pokemon, and I love that we have it on the team. All right, next up is our single 80 tier Pokemon. And it's something that I got to use in one of the Season 8 random battles, and that's our Balava. Again, super cool ability for this Pokemon in Seed Sower. What that does is when I get hit by an attack, it pops Grassy Terrain. And with Grassy Terrain and how bulky this Pokemon actually is, it's got base 109 special defense and base 90 defense. I actually take hits fairly well. Better than I actually expected. And being able to drop the Seed Sower ability, being able to give some longevity to things like Wishy-Washy, Tauros, Caparaja, I think it plays a really cool role in that regard to be able to give us, as a team, some passive healing in longer drawn-out games. The other thing that's really cool about our Balava is it's got base 125 special attack, and this thing will hit harder than people expect. The move pool, say what you will, it's not super deep, but it's good enough to where I can run stuff like Giga Drain, Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam, Pollen Puff for some coverage. Obviously, it's a great Terramon candidate, things like that. Lots of grass type moves, lots of normal type moves, but it does get some fairy coverage, and with Terra type, I can pick whichever move that I want, or whichever type move that I want. It also gets Earth Power, which helps with the Fire type matchup tremendously. So I love this Pokemon. I think it's going to be super cool. I'm excited to use it. And being a grass normal type, the typing it's okay. But I'm really excited to maybe catch some people off guard with actually how good this little olive tree actually is. So now we get into our last pick, and it's a good one. It was our first Pokemon off the board for us, and the kind of the team captain, the big offensive threat that I wanted. And that is Baxcalibur. We went with the Gen 9 Pseudo, the Ice Dragon himself. What more do you want to say about Baxcalibur other than, this thing will kill stuff. I love just the potential of being able to run multiple sets with this thing. Obviously, Glaive Rush is such a good Pokemon move. It's such a good move. Being Dragon type means that it hits a lot of things hard. Unless you're like a Fairy type, or what else gets resisted by Dragon? I don't even know. But Glaive Rush being a really cool move for this Pokemon is great. Against Icicle Crash, Ice Shard for some priority. I can run Earthquake. I can run a whole bunch of different sets. It has setup potential with Dragon Dance. We could run. I actually had Baxcalibur during the random battle season as well for one game, and I ran weakness policy on it, so it's bulky enough with that 115 HP and some pretty decent defenses to be able to actually survive some hits and dish them back out. And I think it is a little bit of a gamble to kind of just go all in on hey, I'm going to build a team around making sure that Baxcalibur can get kills. And the rest of the team, may or may not fit the mold of a good draft team overall. But I think we did a good job of kind of building around the strengths of Baxcalibur and covering its weaknesses. It's weak to Rock, Dragon, Steel, Fairy, and Fighting, and we've got decent coverage for a lot of those types, except Fighting. That's definitely the weakness to this team, as I have 4 different Pokemon that are very weak to Fighting type moves, but we have 3 resistances too, so it kind of evens out. But I'm excited about Baxcalibur. I'm excited about how, in the right situation, this thing could sweep a team if you're not ready. It hits so hard, and it's got the bulk to stick around, and the speed's not anything to sneeze at either at 87. So there's a couple of different items that I can run, a pretty decent move pool to kind of be able to switch it up week to week, and it's kind of a cool new Gen 9 Pokemon to make our captain and kind of build the team around. So that is Baxcalibur, and that's the team, everybody. We are in a really good spot. So after the draft was over, the preseason rankings came out, and we were the number 1 team in the power rankings. So not only do I feel really good about my draft, but there were other coaches that did as well. But it also means that we have a tremendous amount of pressure on us, and we got to make it happen. We gotta play on our toes. We got to be on top of our game. We got to make sure that when we go into battles that we are ready to dish out punishment whenever we can and have a good result in the end game. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. It's going to be a really fun season. Getting back into Draft League, into an actual drafted team, going through that process is always super fun. We're in a very tough division. We play Hooper week 1, and then we've got 2 other opponents in our division that are definitely games that you should not overlook. If I've learned anything in playing in APDL over the last 9 seasons, is that everybody can win on any given day. So you better bring your A game at every single time that you log on and play one of these other talented teams. So good luck to everybody this season. I can't wait to make a playoff push, and hopefully this new brand, the Twin City Talonflames, can be your Season 9 APDL champions. So I hope you stick with us over the course of this next few months as we play through Season 9. Watch for a Week 1 video very, very soon. It's a good one. Go Talonflames.